Hello, the cavalcade has moved on again. Tavistock is our launch pad as we turn and begin to head east with the halfway point well and truly breached. And when riders begin to complain about how hard it all is, you know the Tour is doing something right. More average weather in Minehead as a battle-weary peloton rolled out, and before they'd even got warm, Dan Martin got on the attack. Vacances were alert to the move, and Martin was brought back to the fold. But not for long. Off he went again. Then a group of three formed with Matt Hayman and Johnny Hoogerland, which Dan Martin duly attacked. Wout Poels reeled him in on the climb out of Dawlish, and that proved to be the winning move.
Nobody's going to catch the Flying Dutchman. And there is the victory salute.
Big man!
The boys from Holland, the men of the moment, but an honourable mention must go to Dan Martin.
Once I started attacking, I just couldn't stop. So I had really good legs today, and it was just fun to put on a show. It was incredible the number of people on the side of the road. Like, I've never seen anything like that in Britain before. So it's really good to see, and I'm just glad I could put on a good show. Just lacked that final 5 kilometres because it was headwind. I mean, I just didn't have anything left. So.
Well, another day of absolute carnage on this fascinating Tour of Britain yesterday. Dean Downing, you last rode the race in 2008, and indeed last year. What we saw more often than not were just bunch sprints, and the race was much more predictable, much easier to read. What's different this year?
Yeah, there was a lot of sprinting last year for the stage wins, but yeah, Graham Jones, the route director, has come up with a harder circuit this year. There is some flat stages to come, but yeah, it's been tough. Yesterday, for example, was split to bits, 20 minutes or so down with a peloton.
It can't just be about the profiles of the individual stages, though. It must have something to do with the attitude that some of the more big-name riders and teams have brought to the race. Yeah,
there's some of the world's best riders here in the big teams, and they're taking this race seriously. It's got a great feel to it, and they're in preparation for the World Championships maybe.
Yeah, it's very interesting. You know, Richie Port told me the other day that he actually thought this race was better preparation for the World Championships just coming up than the Vuelta. So that says something about the status of the Tour of Britain. Now, here's a question: who is the top-placed British rider on the Tour? Well, you might think it could be him, or arguably him, but the chances are endurer's Rob Partridge would not have been top of your list. In fact, he's in 8th place. Rob Partridge, top-placed Brit. How does that sound?
Yeah, it's pretty good feeling. I didn't really come here to go for a GC ride, but now I've got in that position on the second stage. I'm fighting for every position now, every day.
How much of a step up is it for you guys from the domestic scene to take on the big boys from the big teams?
The month coming up to the Tour of Britain, we've had to just training camps. We've looked at a lot of these stages and prepared on our home turf, really. And bit of a gamble coming to Tour of Britain without the racing a lot of these other teams have got, but it seems to be working anyway.
Ian Bibby is another young homegrown rider who's made his mark on this race.
Well, there's just a lot more strength and depth in these races, and it's raced a lot different. It's more controlled with the bigger teams riding. So to come and get a result at something like this is pretty big, really.
Cervelo's Dan Lloyd, who's already ridden 2 Grand Tours this season, is impressed with the domestic riders.
Yesterday it was a 30-man group at the front, and it wasn't a soft move by any means. It was, whoever was going good was there, basically. It was really hard from the start, and there was 3 from Modes Point. Rafa had 1 in, and Durasport had 2 in. I'm sure one day it'll come where, especially with Sky on board now, this is a big race for them, and I think they would have liked to have won overall, and it's not worked out the way they wanted it to. But for sure, one year they're going to win it, and hopefully it'll be with a British rider. Yeah, it's great news for Rob Partridge, isn't it, Dean? And it's great news for the domestic teams as well to see this kind of showing.
Yeah, I know Rob quite well. He was an ex-teammate of mine, so he's doing a great ride in 8th place overall, and all the British teams they're getting in there and getting stuck in. There's a lot of riders in the main breakaway yesterday in the 30-man break, so it's good to see.
On the other hand, we've got guys like Roger Hammond with Cervelo, Dan Lloyd, of course your brother amongst the other British Sky riders. They have been less impressive, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, it's a hard course, and they're struggling to. They're all doing a lot of teamwork, but so Rob's in really good company, and well, he's beating good company in 8th place. So I know I wouldn't be anywhere near the top 10. So fair play to Rob Partridge.
Absolutely. I know you're enjoying your ride in the car with me instead, aren't you?
Yep, it's very nice. It's very nice, especially when I'm not driving.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's have a look at the drive that awaits me and Dean, and indeed the rest of the peloton as they go from Tavistock to Glastonbury. Stage 5 then, and it's Dartmoor. Straight into a climb at Merivale to loosen the legs still stiff from yesterday's exertions before the gradients eventually even out a little as Devon becomes Somerset. And whatever break might have got away, we'll find them racing hard to bring it back again in time for an ease up in Glastonbury. If it looks long, that's because it is. 176 kilometres. Straight up onto Dartmoor then, with its bare beauty. Get yourself to the nearest summit and celebrate your achievement. Failing that, head for Exeter, which is a bit more of a chilled out experience. Not quite as chilled as Glastonbury, of course, but then again, what could be? So we're in the bottom left-hand corner, and somewhere over there lies Glastonbury. So here's your headline act for the day, Hugh Porter and Graham Jones.
Welcome to the start of stage 5 of the Tour of Britain. It takes the riders from Tavistock to Glastonbury, a distance of 110 miles, the second longest leg of this year's tour. And another wonderful opportunity then for the school kids to enjoy this Tour of Britain as it rolls out. Now then, Graham, what was you thinking when you designed this stage? There's still 1 or 2 climbs for them to negotiate.
Yes, there are. Most of the climbs are actually in the first sort of 2/3 of the race, so I think the riders will be glad to get out of the mountains and onto the flatter roads. They've had quite a tough last few days.
Well, it's 45 miles from the summit to the final climb to the finish. And there's a man who must be rubbing his hands with glee at the thought of the first climb, and that's Johnny Hoogeland, because he is tying at the moment with Richie Port. They've both got 45 points. So that's going to be a very, very interesting contest.
It is, and the fact that they are tied on points, and if they don't pick up any points between themselves today, then it's going to be difficult to a real battle in the last couple of days, because they're only third caps.
Well, there's the first attack of the day, and it's one of the Anne Post riders, and this is the Belgian Peter Gilbert, and he looks as though he wants to get on with it already, so he's recovered well after the tough stage they rode yesterday.
I think the interesting thing today is the fact that we've actually got some sunshine and dry roads, and I think the riders will also profit from this nice tailwind for most of the ride today.
So the morale will be high, as you say, with the tailwind, and you can see there that there's a sense of urgency already here in the peloton. Looking at 1 or 2 of the motor point Marshall past the boys at the back, but Gilbert really keen to get on with this. He wants to be the first man then to get onto the foot slopes of the opening climb, and he is.
Yes, and it's also, I've actually cut this climb down a little bit. The first 3 or 4 kilometres of this climb are actually neutralised. I didn't want to really have them start right from the word go at the bottom of the climb, and we've just got the last 2 or 3 kilometres of the real climb across the moors.
Graham, what is happening to you? You're getting rather generous to the riders. Have they been talking to you? You said you were going to make the course much harder this year, and you certainly have. Gilbert is still ahead, but other riders are now starting to come up to bridge, and that's forging together a nice little group.
Yes, it is, and I think we'll expect to see this group maybe catching before the top. But after we go over the top, we've got still quite a lot of cross runs and rolling roads across the moors.
There's a good cross representation of teams there. There's riders from Motor Point Marshall's past, you can see them. Endura, also Rafa Conda Sharp, but still at the front it is Gilbert from Anne Post, and now 2 just starting to ease their way clear.
Yeah, this might be a day for the breakaways to go, but I do think there's this possibility, although it is hilly early on, that we could still end up with a bun sprint if they don't let any breakaway get too far ahead. There's plenty of room to chase after the climbs.
Rider from Vacon-Soleil keen to take it on here. They're having a fantastic tour. Michael Golas right at the front, Gilbert in his wheel, and just behind Gilbert it's the Spaniard Iker Camino of Endura.
Yeah, good little group forming, but we can see one or two riders behind. There's a Garmin rider behind. I wonder if that's Dan Martin. He was very active yesterday, so I'll be a little bit surprised if he's up the road again. But having said that, Dan Martin is an aggressive rider.
But he will be really smarting, won't he? Because he was away for so long yesterday, and his chances finally evaporating as they were approaching Teignmouth. But just look at that magnificent moorland view there, stretching out. Perfect racing countryside.
Yeah, it's great to have the sun out for the stage light today, so it really does show off the Devon countryside and the Somerset countryside.
This Spaniard sitting second wheel at the moment, Camino, very experienced rider. He's ridden in the Tour de France, Tour of Spain in his career, and he's an interesting rider on the Enduro squad. There he is in the middle of the three, and Gilbert is on the right, and just coming through there is the king of the mountains, and that is Johnny Hougeland. Now then, if Hougeland can take points here, he's going to go right ahead of Richie Porte, and he will be the outright leader of the king of the mountains. At the moment, they're both tied on 45 points.
Well, he's obviously looking to try and get some points on the board very early and hope that he can open a little bit of a lead on Richie Porte. We can't see him at the moment.
Well, a second category climb gives you 6 points if you're first over the top. And Hougeland has got his teammate there, Golas at the front, who's keeping the tempo high. It was Dan Martin. Good spot there, Graham. Martin's come through as well, and Hougeland is just tucked into the wheel of Martin. So these two now beginning to try and lift the tempo. Golas looked across to see where his teammate was. Hougeland as we're getting ever nearer to the top. And also the ISD rider has come through there, and that's Patrick Sinkovic in that Dayglow coloured jersey.
There's a nice little group there forming, and there's just about 200 or 300 metres over the rest of the peloton.
And when they get to the summit here, they will have only covered 2.9 miles of the stage. So it's very early on to get a group like this forming.
Yes, it's going to be interesting to see who does actually start to try and chase this down, or whether indeed anybody does really put the heads down and chase.
Clear daylight now, but look at the field. It's fractured, hasn't it? It's in several different groups trying to get on terms with the riders ahead. 6 now going towards the line. 2 Vacon Soleil riders reading the move well, and I think we're going to hear a lot more about that team as we get into the closing stages, because they will specialise in echelon style racing. Here goes the effort then by Hougeland. Hougeland then looks as though he's gathering himself here to try and get past Sinkovic for the maximum points at the top. Sinkovic on the left, Hougeland coming past him on the right. Oh, it was tight, very tight. But if it was Hougeland that got the better of Sinkovic there, it was. He gets 6 points. Now that means he has gone ahead of Richie Porte in the King of the Mountains competition by that clear 6 points. So that's a cracking start for Hougeland and the Vacon Soleil team. We'll take a break. Welcome back, and I can tell you that the leading group has now been rejigged, and it's actually grown in numbers. You're looking at the sprinter on the front there, and that's Heinrich Hausler, but the rest of the composition of this group is Bradley Wiggins, Lucas Sebastian Haydo on the Saxo team, and they've got 3 minutes and 4 seconds already, so they are working well together. Dan Martin is there, Ike Camano of the Enduro squad, Marco Frapporti, the Italian on the Colnago team. Now he's the highest placed here at 13 minutes and 5 seconds. Coming up to the first sprint of the day, and this sprint comes at Cheriton Bishop, and over the line there first is Michael Golas. Now the fact that Michael Golas has crossed the line first means he's narrowed the gap down on the leader, and that is Richie Porte. There is the result confirmed for you, and the rest of the composition of that group is Peter Gilbert of the Anne Post squad, who was very aggressive earlier on, and you just saw Golas. So that's the combination of the team. So now HTC Columbia are on the back foot, Graham.
Yeah, well, they're not too much. They're, as you said, Frapporti is their best placed rider, but he is over 13 minutes down overall. So this breakaway has got every chance of opening a decent sized lead. It just remains to see whether any of the teams of the sprinters want to keep it at a reasonable distance and then try and chase them down after the last climb.
The reason I said they're on the back foot, I've heard loud and clear over race radio that they've lost Tony Martin. He's abandoned now. Tony Martin has been one of the big domestiques working for the yellow jersey every day.
Well, that's true, and it's not only Tony Martin that has abandoned it. of fact, several riders in the team have had stomach problems overnight, and including the yellow jersey of Albacini. So it remains to be seen whether he's been weakened by that today.
So they've lost Tony Martin, they've lost Marco Pinotti, the strong Italian, and what it means is the pressure is now going to be on the remaining 4, and the majority of those are sprinters.
Well, that's the intriguing thing. I mean, when you've got down to 4 riders and one's in the yellow jersey, that gives you only 3 other riders to do all the work. And despite the fact that we're going out of the hills today, we've still got 2 tough stages across in Norfolk and Colchester and Essex stages, which could be affected by crosswinds, and that's going to be very difficult with just 3 teammates.
You may well find that Bert Grabsch, the German on the HTC Columbia team, the former world time trial champion, will be left to fill the boots of Tony Martin. Well, there's Bradley Wiggins. Now Sky, okay, they had a stage victory with Henderson and they popped him into the yellow jersey, but after that, of course, they've lost out. Now, could this be a day for Bradley Wiggins? He just won the British time trial championship. He's got the good legs.
Well, that's the thing. Once you've lost any chance of doing something overall in a good high overall position, then you've got to start turning your attention to maybe trying to win a stage, and it looks like Bradley's trying to do that today.
Well, there's the gap, 3 minutes and 46 seconds. It's already a very handsome margin, and that group that slipped away quite easily are going nicely ahead.
Well, it's a nice little group of riders, a nice size of number of riders in it to work well together, and but sometimes you can get a breakaway that's too large and you get people sitting on, a lot of messing around, but this is they really look like they're working well.
And then, as you say, when you get the group that's too large, you get people who are passengers, and it disrupts the rhythm of the front because they think, I'm not going to work, and carry the rest. But the fact that they are all low down and nobody's going to affect the yellow jersey, they may well be allowed to stay away. So many kids have turned out again. They love it, don't they?
Yeah, Somerset County Council and Devon County Council do a fantastic job with all the schools. They go around them, in the months preceding the tour, and they really do get them out in force. It's fantastic.
Perfect countryside then today for through across Dartmoor. And as we've mentioned already, the fact that it is dry, they don't have to worry about the descents. And there are 1 or 2 rolling descents here as we are heading to the start of the second climb of the day.
This is called 6 Mile Hill. It's not quite 6 miles in length from this side. I think it gets its name from the climb the other side. It tends to be a little bit longer going down into Exeter.
So the group working nicely at the front, and we still see lined out in perfect linear formation here the team of HTC Columbia. This is exactly what they have to do, isn't it? Once a group has slipped clear and they've got the jersey, then the onus is on them to keep pulling the peloton along.
Well, I said they've got 13 minutes to play with, and there's no real panic in there. They've just got to keep a nice tempo.
Dan Martin, for me, is so impressive. He's a prodigious talent, and I'm rather amazed that he can get into the break again, because he expended so much energy yesterday.
Well, that just proves that what a great prospect he is as a stage race rider in years to come. He's still only very young, and to be able to recover after a hard day out in front, not only with a very hilly stage, but also in cold, wet conditions, and it's great to see him back on the attack again.
Well, it's almost pedestrian pace here, isn't it, at the front of the peloton? Nobody really wants to inject any pace. Just speculating about that leading group. Should they stay together, you've got a couple of really fast finishers in Heinrich Hausler and also Haydo, the Argentinian. He's a former track rider. So if this went right to the wire, Bradley Wiggins would have to work out how he could give those two the slip.
Yeah, well, that's often the case when you see a little group of 8 like this. You very often get some attacks in the final kilometres, and that's what Bradley's got to do.
Well, it doesn't look as though they're going to sprint it out for the line here. They're just going to go through in the order that they're actually taking their turns. And it was the man in the light blue at the front on the Columbia team, Marco Frapporti, that was first. Hausler, the sprinter, getting over second, and Bradley Wiggins third. Well, it's nice to see, isn't it, that Wiggins, the triple Olympic gold medalist, is starting to show a little bit, because the British fans really want to see this.
Yes, I mean, everybody's coming out to see Bradley Wiggins. Those at Sport Team Sky, and they want to see him up the front, and he's doing exactly that today.
And there he is, Wiggins, the face of concentration. I did mention a little earlier, he's just won the time trial championship. He's elected actually not to go to the World Champs and the Commonwealth Games, so this is probably going to be his final event of this season. But such a talented all-rounder, and he's made it known that he wants to compete in the 2012 Olympics in London to try and get another gold medal. Such an integral part of that team pursuit squad. There's the line out on the front, a thin line, and it's being established by HTC Columbia, but there doesn't look to be any urgency in their effort.
No, it's a nice steady pace. I mean, they've just got to keep a nice tempo, and of course these riders in there may also be a little bit weakened by the illnesses overnight, so they don't really want to have to kill anybody off today.
Looks like the super sprinter Greipel was on the front there, has had 20 wins to his credit this year, as we look at the crouching style here of Dan Martin on the front. Martin, who actually comes from Tamworth near Sutton Coldfield, but he's decided to ride for Ireland because he has a dual nationality because of his mother, and he couldn't really get a permanent spot in the British squad.
No, it's quite surprising actually, but you know, he's made this decision now, and you know, as I say, it's going to be a great prospect for Irish cycling.
Now then, Vacon Soleil have really impressed me, and they of course had first and second on yesterday's stage, and they have still got a full squad. And Cervelo is another team to look out for. Well, a bit of cramp maybe in the thighs here. What do you think for the rider from the Colnago team?
Well, I'm sure there are still a few tired and sore muscles from yesterday, so he's probably just taken that opportunity just to loosen his legs up a little bit.
And that was Frapporti. Know too much about this Italian. There's so many talented professionals over there, you never really get to see them all.
No, that's right. There's so many teams, and you know, we hear all about the top Italians, but there's a fantastic, as there is in Spain, and a fantastic amount of teams.
You think there's quite a lot of riders in this race that are battling it out every day, 100 miles plus, and then next week they'll be performing in Manchester. I'm on about British track riders because it's their national championships, and that is very important. People like Ed Clancy, Tennant, they're all going to go, and they'll be racing around the board, so that underlines the talent of the riders. There's the line at the top of the climb, and the peloton just pedal through, and the gap 5 minutes and 30 seconds. Well, that is an emphatic lead, and there's a very good chance that these breakaway boys may stay away.
Welcome back now as the breakaway approached the second sprint at Columpton. There were huge crowds out on the road to see Michael Golas of Vacon Soleil snatch all 5 points, and off they set for the final climb of the day at Rosemary Hill.
And it's still the same 8 riders with the head of the race, and amongst the 8 is Bradley Wiggins, and look at the lead now, 6 minutes and 40 seconds, and they are just about ready to tackle the final climb of the day. And it's only a mile long, but Graham, it's steep.
It is. It's very steep at the bottom part of the climb, but one of the interesting things about this climb is that we actually descended it yesterday, and so it's a rare occasion that a Tour of Britain might use the same road twice in the same event.
Do you think the riders will remember that?
They probably won't actually. They unless they've looked at the maps, but they came down this hill yesterday in obviously cold and wet conditions, and today they're going in reverse in nice sunny conditions.
So we're likely to see some different climbing techniques here because it's steeper, but it's always HTC Columbia on the front, and the rest of the peloton are getting a nice armchair ride.
Yeah, comfortable day for the rest of the peloton, especially once they get over this climb. They just need to sit in the wheels and let the HTC Columbia riders control the race.
Well, Bradley Wiggins, he's starting to apply some pressure here. He's taken away with him the man that attacked first today, Peter Gilbert, the Belgian. So Wiggins, the electric pursuiter and team pursuiter, is starting to try and go clear, but immediately there's a reaction from behind, and that's the Enduro rider, Camano, and now the break is split into 2.
Yeah, a little gap of about 20 metres opening there with Dan Martin just behind, bringing the others up.
But he does look good today. Wiggins, he's got the face on, the race face, hasn't he? And there is confirmation of the group. It is Wiggins, Gilbert and Camano.
Bradley Wiggins looking very comfortable there. It's not really an attack. I think it's just the tempo that is setting has opened the gap.
I think he's just putting a little probe downhill, trying to feel out the strength of the rest of the break. Too long from here to go for a lone one.
It is, yeah. I mean, he's really not attacking, and although he's not attacking, he's sort of dropping Peter Gilbert. He's struggling to stay in contact.
He's doing a little bit of damage, but it's nice to see that Bradley Wiggins is showing strongly at the front. And once again, big crowd. Tour of Britain has attracted massive crowds throughout. You just saw the gradient on the sign there, Graham, 16%.
Yeah, it's about 1 in 6, isn't it?
It is. But the man on the front here, I don't think he's going to be too happy when he has to lead them up, because that's the sprinter, isn't it? Greipel. Now then, are they going to persist, or will they wait for the rest of the group when they've crossed the hill?
Oh, I think there's still an awful long way to go to the finish, and I think they'll be better off with 8 riders rather than just 3 riders.
There they are. You can see that they have gone clear, but I think you're right. They will wait for the rest of the group. 9 seconds is the advantage.
Oh, Gilbert's been replaced by Golas now.
He has. Golas is having a good day today because he has won the first 2 sprints that have been on offer, and that is Cheriton Bishop and Colompton. So he is going to become a serious threat to the leader in the intermediate sprint competition, Richie Port. So Richie Port's already had his lead taken away in the King of the Mountains. It may be a costly day for him.
It might be, yes, and it's nice to see all these jerseys changing hands all the time, because quite often the sprints jersey is sort of won on the first and second days, and similar case with the King of the Mountains.
It's been one of the most exciting Tour of Britain's actually, Graham. Ferociously aggressive every day. All the riders want to get their name on the score sheet, and the classifications, all of them, are changing all the time.
Yeah, and I must admit, a couple of nights ago I did think the race might have been all over as a competition for the overall winner, but having seen the fact that HTC Columbia now down to just 4 riders, including the yellow jersey, I still think there's a lot to play for in this race yet.
And do you think that is because you've changed the course, you've made it a lot tougher?
Well, it is. I mean, I would normally like to have had a few more difficulties in the latter part of the race and probably the easier part in the first race, but as it's worked out the way it is, it could still turn into a great race on the flatter stages.
Well, where we're going for the flatter stages could lend itself to echelon racing, and that, we know, is the toughest style of racing there is. Bradley Wiggins crests the top of the final climb first to get 10 points. He's not in the mix, of course, for the King of the Mountains, but he's tucked the 10 points under his belt. It was Camano second and Golas third, and they've still got 8 seconds advantage over the remnants of that break.
I just noticed it was down to 4 riders at that remnants as well, so I was just wondering who they lost. They couldn't see the black jersey of Hausler.
Well, if Hausler has dropped off, that actually will be very nice for Bradley Wiggins, because Hausler is one of the quick sprinters in that group, the other of course being Haydo. There are the first 4 over the top. Well, Hausler actually finished 8th, didn't he? So he's still there, but...
well, he's not in this group of 4 that's chasing, so we wonder what's happened to him.
No, that is a good spot. Now then, what's happened to Heinrich Hausler? There's Haydo, and just ahead of him is the Spanish rider, Camano. They're all back together again.
Just as we thought, it wasn't really an attack by Wiggins, it was just the tempo that he was setting, and he's held it up and waited for the others to join him. So we've got 7 leaders at the moment, and just wait to see where Hausler is.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because he was actually just on the back of the group, obviously because he got awarded that 1 point. But now, well, he's lost contact. May have had a puncture. But the group, they're not bothered about him. They're getting down to the work. They've got 45 miles still to go to the finish.
You know, just doesn't descend immediately after this climb. We spend quite a lot of time on sort of plateau roads, or it's like a long sort of ridge, and it's probably another 10 kilometres before we actually descend.
Do you think HTC Columbia will be happy with having to do all this work on the front?
Well, I'm sure they won't be happy, especially down to just 3 riders to do the work, but they've got to get on with it.
Well, the lead has been growing with every pedal rev since they managed to rid themselves of the peloton. I'm just wondering if the advantage they've established is enough to see them to the finish to contest the sprint.
Well, it's actually, for me, it's a doable distance to be chased down with 7 riders, but it's whether those teams want to take the risk, and it's not just about HTC Columbia. They wouldn't be able to do that on their own. They really need the teams of the other sprinters to bring that back.
Well, there's an injection of pace at the front of the peloton here. Looks like Richie Port, actually, on the left. Richie Port, who has, of course, lost his lead in the King of the Mountains today, but he's beginning to show. Now, this is the kind of climb that Port actually could jump clear on, maybe get a little group to knit together to start to form a chase.
Well, that's what you have to wonder. I mean, if a lot of people knew that the HTC Columbia were sick overnight, then it's probably also got to the riders. So maybe he's just having a little test to see what sort of shape Albacini's in.
But the beauty of this group is the fact that it's a rich mix of different teams, so they're all keen, aren't they, to keep the pressure on. This is Sinkovic.
And of course that also means that there's 7 or 8 teams that are not going to chase.
You're absolutely right there, and it leaves the onus always on the squad with the yellow jersey. Now it's Sinkovic levering his way towards the top, and he's taking Richie Porte with him. So a brace of talented riders here trying to get away from the field.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether Richie Porte thinks there might be some points still available, or whether he's actually testing Albacini. I mean, that's really probably not an attack that he will continue, wouldn't have thought, just 2 riders.
Well, it was 6:30, wasn't it, the gap back to the peloton, and these two have now got 20 seconds off the front of that peloton.
Yeah, nice little gap, but I still don't think they'll probably continue with their effort, unless they might just carry on and just see if anybody does come and join them.
But I suppose on the road, Graham, if they could stay clear and finish between the leading group and the peloton. I mean, Richie Porte started today second overall at 1 minute 28 seconds, and Patrick Sinkovic 6th at 2 minutes and 8 seconds. So they are danger men.
Well, they are definitely danger men, so HTC Columbia will have to do something after this climb.
So every time HTC Columbia are pushed to pull these riders back, it's sapping their energy.
It is, and that can have a wearing effect. We've got a very long stage tomorrow from Kingsland to Great Yarmouth, and we could see quite a lot of crossroads. It could be very difficult to control the race tomorrow.
And other riders, of course, are sitting in the peloton saving their energy, like Borut Bozic, the Vakon Soleil team, because he's 3rd overall and he hasn't had to put his nose out the front at all. 70 kilometres to go, so the Vakon Soleil boys could profit from this. 6:36 the advantage.
Yeah, that's the gap at the top of the climb, so the little acceleration in pace by these two has just closed it a little.
And 22 seconds the advantage then for the two going clear, Sinkovic and Porte. And 22 seconds, of course, is ahead of the main peloton. But the leading group still keen to get on with this. They've got a lot to gain. Dan Martin coming through on the front, looking full of riding. So we're into the final stages.
Welcome back. Now, the same men were out front as they closed in on the 3rd sprint of the day, 25 kilometres from the finish. Michael Golas completing his clean sweep, with Bradley Wiggins claiming 2nd, and those men were still clear on the run-in to Glastonbury.
Well, we're inside 10 kilometres to go now. The hills are behind them. Dan Martin's at the front. Oh, look at this, an attack by Bradley Wiggins. So Wiggins decides it's time for him to have a go. Well, he hasn't quite got clear, but what he has done is put the rest of the brake on the back foot.
Well, this is what always happens when you get a breakaway that's been away all day like this. It very rarely all stays together. There's always one rider that tries to attack, wants to get away. He's not a sprinter, so he should see plenty of action over the last few kilometres.
Well, I think the face tells you all, doesn't it? Wiggins attacked, but he really looks to be in pain, but he's having another dig here, and every time he does that, it's causing a lot of problems for the rest. Look at this, 7 minutes, then back to the main peloton, and it's still HTC on the front as an attack by Dan Martin beginning to go.
Yeah, I think we could see more and more attacks, and Dan Martin, despite all his efforts yesterday, is still looking very strong.
Certainly is. He'd dearly love to get this one. So Dan Martin now has established a slender advantage. There's a chase beginning to develop from behind, and that looks like the rider from Colnago, Frapporti. And if Frapporti can link up there with Martin and they start to work, well, that's going to put problems down for the rest of the group.
Yeah, he's not quite made it yet. He's making a big effort to get there, but what we're going to see now is whether the other 5 do react or whether there's a little bit of hesitancy.
Well, the main peloton are all back together again because Sinkovic and Porte have been pulled back. Now then, these two are trying to carve an advantage over the rest, and at the moment it looks to be pretty fruitful, this effort.
Yeah, they've certainly opened a decent gap, and they're both working very well together, and whether we see Wiggins try to get across or whether the group of 5 do actually work together to try and pull them back.
Well, they're disorganised behind, aren't they? But there is another effort beginning to start there. One rider going away, and this is exactly the kind of thing that happens, isn't it? One rider jumps away, he'll sit up, and then another one will react.
It's been a long day on the front for HTC Columbia. It'll be have to wait and see how it goes over the next couple of days, whether it's taking its toll on them.
Well, it's a concerted effort by these two, but you will have noticed, of course, only 7 men, and I can confirm that Heinrich Hausler retired after the final climb. So Hausler, who was a big sprinter and could have been a danger man here, has climbed off.
Well, still attacking behind. They're not actually working together to bring these two back. It's still individual attacks. It looked like Kamano was just having a go.
Well, Camano is from Spain. He's had a good day. He's a member of the Endura team, and of course he's one of the most experienced tour riders in the field here. But it doesn't look as though the rest of the break are allowing him the freedom, and still the two persist. Italian rather concerned about the gap they've got, and it isn't really convincing.
No, but they've got to keep going. It only takes 1 second of hesitancy, and these guys slow up and the gap will suddenly open.
They're not working together though, they're totally disorganised, and that's the kind of thing that will play into the hands of the leaders. It's 8 seconds, and Martin once again comes to the front, grimacing as he makes the effort.
They are going into quite a strong headwind there. It's been another windy day out there, despite the fact that it's been following them most of the way. The course switches around a little bit over these last few kilometres, and they're going to a headwind, and when they turn at 3 kilometres to go, they've got a very strong side wind.
Well, all these riders are now in the red zone. They've been giving it their all ever since the start, and this is the second longest leg, and they've got the hills behind them. Now then, they're all trying to cover themselves in glory, but at the moment nobody has found the formula to bridge up to the 2, and that's Camano that made the latest effort. But the problem here is that they're not organised. If they're all working together, the remnants of the break versus 2, well, really they should pull them back, but these two are working fluidly.
Yeah, they're keeping a consistent pace up, whereas behind you get one attack, then they brought back, and then there's a little bit of work between them, and then another one will attack, so this is looking very good for the two of them.
Best way to bridge is to try and jump clear of that group and get right up into the wheel of the 2. Well, as HTC have got no allies at all, they're losing more ground.
They are, but as I say, they've got 30 minutes to play with, and these two still working very well together, and 16 seconds now to the other 5.
It's a nice advantage. Look, an attack again here. The Italian doesn't want to stay with Dan Martin, and this is Marco Frapporti of the Colnago team going clear. Now then, has he gone away too early?
Well, it doesn't look like it. Dan Martin really struggling to hold his wheel, and the gap is opening, and I think Dan Martin may be a spent force. He's done a lot of work yesterday.
Well, this 25-year-old Italian has now taken the race by the scruff of the neck. He is 14th overall, 13 minutes and 5 seconds back, so he's the best place rider overall, as Bradley Wiggins once again jumps clear of the group. Now then, Wiggins, with his pursuing skills, could get across this gap. It's 20 seconds the advantage.
Well, he's the one person out of this group that does have a chance of catching Frapporti, but it may well be just too late.
It's bridgeable, definitely bridgeable, and Wiggins is gritting his teeth. He's got his second wind, and he's now out to try and get up to the Italian Marco Frapporti. What a finish this is going to be in Glastonbury.
It's got the strong crosswind from the left, and that's why he's staying over the left-hand side of the road, just trying to keep or get every bit of shelter he can from the hedges.
Fully committed now. Look at this in that crouching style, turning the big gear. He wants the victory. 1 kilometre to go. Well, Colnago came very close to victory in stage 1 when they finished in Blackpool, when it was his teammate Manuel Belletti that just got pipped to the line by André Greipel. Now 24 seconds, that's a winning margin for me.
Well, it's going to be very difficult for Bradley Wiggins to get across to him now. We're just inside this last kilometre, we've got just a drag up to the 400 metres to go mark, and then it's a little bit of downhill before the slight uphill finish.
Well, I think he's done enough to secure the stage victory here. He's given it his all. He was out of the saddle there to find a little bit more speed, but this man has certainly taken his chances well. Marco Frapporti senses victory.
Yeah, it's a great timing for the move, and he profited from a little bit of hesitancy behind, and it's going to be a great stage win for him.
Well, 500 metres to go now for the leader. He's got this one sewn up, Marco Frapporti. And behind the bunch, well, different descending styles being shown here, and they've been on the front all day, haven't they, the team of HTC Columbia? And I think if they want to win this Tour of Britain overall, this is exactly what they're going to be doing all the way through to the finish in London. They've got no allies, so the rest will just profit from their efforts. Well, the big crowd here in Glastonbury are welcoming the victor today. What a show. Here he comes then, Marco Frapporti. He's going to win stage 5 of the Tour of Britain here in Glastonbury. The Colnago rider is going to give us the victory salute. There it is. Great piece of riding, timed his effort to perfection, gave the rest the slip, and the victory is his. And here comes Bradley Wiggins for second place. Had 1 or 2 goes, but they didn't pay off. Wiggins crosses the line, gets generous applause for second place. Now here's the gallop in for third behind, and Haydo beginning to gather himself here at the Team Saxo Bank squad on the right, and he's going to try and get past Kamano. He does. So it's Haydo that takes third place, Kamano fourth, and in fifth place Michael Golas. More riders coming in behind. This is Peter Gilbert, who's been on the attack all day. And behind him, Dan Martin, who I feel sure is going to nail a stage victory sooner or later. Well, it's been another tough day out there, and the riders have really entertained us well. But still 5 kilometres to go for the peloton, and it's still HTC Columbia on the front.
Yes, it's going to be quite a big time gap, but there's going to be no danger for the overall lead.
And a chance for us to see Marco Frapporti celebrating again with the victory salute. It's been a superb day for him. And look at the glorious countryside around here, dominated by Glastonbury Tour. And the good news for the riders, all the tough climbs are behind them.
Marco Frapporti wheeling over the line, his attack unanswerable in the end, and Bradley Wiggins closing fast, but not fast enough. Still, for Wiggins, it was a much better day at the office.
Wasn't to be. I mean, obviously in the final when the attack started, everyone's hesitating and looking at me, and but when we got down to that last section, I was in my element there, just sticking it in the right hand gutter, and I could have just been on the ergo in my garage at home there, just going for the line. And you know, it comes down to, you know, sorting the men out from the boys when it's like that, because they either hold your will, they don't, and it's the wind that causes that. So yeah, I just ran out of road really, couldn't get him back in time.
That was a fantastic victory. I've worked hard for my team this week, and this was my chance to ride out and win.
Deserved and in the end emphatic. Frapporti home first as the chase splintered. Wiggins then coming in ahead of Haydo, and another good ride from Endura in the shape of new signing Iker Kamano. Dan Martin came in seventh. After the breakaway group came across the line in bits and pieces, then the big bunch 9 minutes 18 seconds down, containing all but 5 of the rest of the race. Frapporti the winner though, arguably the biggest of his career to date. Michael Golas of Vacansoleil took out all 3 sprints of the day to take over from Richie Porte in the sprinters competition. And it's a Vacansoleil 1-2 with Johnny Hogeland still in the mountains jersey. Michael Albacini though remains in yellow, but with Tony Martin abandoning, he's now down to just 3 teammates. Incidentally, Heinrich Hausler was the other abandon of the day. As you were in the GC though, by and large, Richie Porte is at 1:28, and everyone down as far as Patrick Sinkovits will still feel that they're in it. Marco Frapporti has snuck up into 10th with that win.
Just on the first kilometers, Tony Martin had to stop while he was sick, and yeah, me also. I didn't sleep the whole night. There was some dysentery, so I was really scary to lose a jersey. But we can do it with 4 riders to defend this jersey in a stage like this is really special, and I have to say a big thanks to my teammates. They make a big job today.
Well, Dean Downing, I reckon that might be the first ever use of the word dysentery on the Tour of Britain. If it's not too delicate a question, have you ever suffered from that on a bike?
Yes, once in the Tour of Langkawi a few years ago, and trust me, it's not a nice experience, especially on a bike.
I'll trust you on that. Michael Albacini, another very gutsy defence of his yellow jersey today. At one point, his 3 biggest rivals, Sinkovits, Porte and Hogeland, had a minute on him on the road.
Yeah, I spoke to Johnny Hogeland after the finish, and he was happy to be in the attack and, you know, taking it to the yellow jersey. He really did think that he would be in the yellow jersey at the end of today. Sadly for Johnny Hogeland, he's not, and a brave attempt by Albacini.
Yeah, that was the one story of the day. Of course, the other story was the stage win by Marco Frapporti and a very creditable second place from Bradley Wiggins. That's much more like the rider that we've all become accustomed to, isn't it?
Yeah, Bradley Wiggins is a huge talent for Britain, and he showed that today. So second place is great, but he didn't get the win.
Now, his record in road racing is actually quite modest, and second place in a stage of the Tour of Britain is pretty much as good as he's ever ridden, except for time trials and prologues. The reason for that, Dean, is it's just very difficult for a rider of his profile to ride out a win, isn't it?
Yeah, his profile here at the Tour of Britain is very high. So for him, he would have been marked out terribly in that breakaway today. Every rider would not want Bradley Wiggins to win, but he sneaked away at the end for a good second and came over the finish line and saluted the winner, which is a very fair play from Bradley.
Absolutely, and tomorrow the Tour of Britain heads to Norfolk. Flat, windy, and frankly a bit like Holland, isn't it, for those Vacances boys?
Yeah, Hogeland will be feeling at home tomorrow, so will his teammates, so maybe he'll give it a go.
Absolutely, and for all you students of ancient geography, you'll know, of course, that Norfolk used to be part of Holland. I wonder if it will be tomorrow.